New to Excel 2016 is a 3D map feature. It's used to track geographical regions of time. In other words, to visualize your data on a map by plotting geographic and temporal or time-related data on a 3D globe or custom map, show it over time, and create visual tours to share with others. Doesn't that just sound fun? Well, before I go ahead and insert my 3D map, you can either have a data range or one converted into a table, as I did here. And in my table, I'm going to be viewing the 3D map based upon the states within the US that I made sales in. If you want to be able to view it by country, then make sure you have a column that has a list of all the countries. In any case, to go ahead and insert the 3D map, make sure that you have a cell selected somewhere within your database. Come up here and click on the Insert tab. Go to the Tours group and click on the 3D map button. And if this is the first time that you're clicking on it, it'll ask you to enable the feature. Go ahead and click on Enable, and there you go. You have the tour window, you've got the main window with the field list that's covering it up, and then over to the right you have the layers, and then the details for each layer. First of all, the field list. It has the name of our table and all the fields within the table, which, by the way, if you want to make any updates, the workbook that this 3D map is based upon is still open, so you can go back down here, as you can see, make any changes, like update the quantity, come back to the 3D map, and then be sure to click refresh so you can pull in those changes. And so if we're done with the field list, let's go ahead and close out of it. If you want to bring it back up, then come up here and click on field list. That also works for the tour editor. You can go ahead and close out of that, click on it to bring it back up, but I'll go ahead and close out of that because I don't want to see it right now. Close out of the field list and then the layers. Now you can have more than one layer, but it starts off with the default layer 1. If you had 2 layers, you can say, well, layer 1 with the details down below is for the US, add a second layer and say that's going to be for maybe South America, and maybe a third layer for Africa and so on. In any case, if you get 2 or more layers, you may want to rename them from its generic name, layer 1. Come over here and click on the pencil, and then delete it. And we'll say this is US sales, hit enter to accept it. And then you got the all-seeing eye, that if you have more than one layer and you don't want to view one of them, by focusing on another, you can go ahead and click on it, it hides it, and you can see over in the US I don't get those little dots on the states that I made sales in. So when I go ahead and click on the eye again, now you can see it, these little dots. And these little dots down below the data heading is based upon the stat column. You can view it by clustered column, or I want to view it by region, because those little dots, well, they're dots because we're viewing it from top down. If I went ahead and rotated the map, I could be able to see it as columns. But let me go ahead and click on region because it actually highlights the state, even those teeny tiny ones like Massachusetts. And then so over to the right, I'm viewing it by state. If you want to view it by country for this layer, like let's say you add another layer and it's bringing up state still, then you can go ahead and close out of that or X out. Then add the field, go down and choose your country. Mine's going to be state again, so we'll bring it back up. And then the value that the states are based upon that you want to pull in, mine's going to be total sales by state. Select total sales. And then you get the legend that lets you know that on one end, the state that made the least amount in sales was 329. And which state is that? Well, you can go ahead and hover over the states and, hey, it's Massachusetts. You can see in the pop-up 329. And then as the gradient gets darker, then it gets all the way up to the state, well, move it up here to Arkansas, that made the maximum sales 2,790. Now, if this legend is getting in the way, well, of course, you can right-click on it to remove it. If you want to bring it back up, then come up here and click on Legend, or you can resize it by hovering over one of the resizing handles, those 2 circles, that you can click and drag to stretch it in, pull it in, and have fun with it. And then click and drag and move it somewhere out of the way. And then next, we can add a category if you have one. Click on it. The essential oils are categorized by antibacterial, antiviral, and so on. So let me go ahead and select category. Ooh, it gives us fun colors. And then up here in the legend, the antibacterial is in a dark shade of blue, and it goes from 1400 to 1400 because that's the only state here that we have sales in antibacterial. So let me go ahead and scroll down. If I find another state or other states that have antiparasitic sales in that category, like we got a lighter shade of purple to a darker shade. So lighter shade was 992. Let me see if Florida is antiparasitic. Yes, there's the 992. And the darker shade is right above it, Alabama, 1026.85. And so when you're making your presentation, at least from what you can see here, based upon my database, I can say here's the states that we've broken into with our sales. We need to go ahead and break into other areas and view the state by category, which ones are most important to which state, if it's antiparasitic or antibacterial and so on. And of course you can go ahead and remove the category. We're back to the total sales here. But I like the category. Let's go ahead and add it again, because below that you can actually add a timeline to it. Click on Add Field, and I have the transaction date or order date, and I have it by month. Now, it's not what you're thinking when it comes to month, as I thought when I first tried to figure this out. Let's go back to the database here, because when you look at the cell, you can't just type in January, because the 3D map won't understand what that means. And so with the cell selected up here in the formula bar, it's equaling another cell, which actually is the order date, J6, over here. And so what I did is I said, go ahead and pull in that transaction date, but convert it so I can read it by month. And to be able to do that, you can just go ahead and right-click on it and go down to Format Cells. Click and drag this up. On the Number tab, go down to the Custom Category. I deleted what was in the field here and typed in MMM for all months, and it gave me a sample of it, because if I go back by 1 M, it just gives me the abbreviation of January. Back by 2 M's, it just gives me the number 01 for January, but I wanted all 4 M's to spell it out, and click Okie dokie, and that way the 3D map will pull it in because it recognizes it as an actual date, but formatted, as I just showed you, into the month of January for anything that has 1, and then February 2s and 3s and so on in the month field of the date. So we can go ahead and go back to our map. And then we can click on it to be able to see it, the month, and be able to view the timeline, transactions over time. As you can see with our play button, that when I click on it, over time it's counting through the time or the months and the actual time itself, but it's going through pretty fast. And then notice when it gets to a certain point with some of these states, they get a little darker, they get a little lighter. Now let's go ahead and do this again, but this time focusing on the state of Florida, because as you notice through the timeline, as we go through the year, they made sales here at this certain point, April or May, and it's a lighter shade of purple. Then towards the end, in about October, wow, it went to a darker shade of purple. So the category, antiparasitic, they made at least 2 purchases. The first sales was on the lower end because it was lighter shade of purple, so around 500. Well, let's go down to the actual database and bring it up, and we're looking at Florida. So earlier in the year, in April, $352 worth, and then later on, down below here, in October, $640 worth, so that's going to be definitely a darker shade of purple. Then you can go ahead and use the buttons to tilt the map up or down or left or right. And then if you come up here and go from region to, like, let's do clustered column. There you go. Ooh, that's pretty cool. And you can view it that way. You can also increase it, zoom in on it. In fact, let's bring up the tour editor, and on the tour editor you can go ahead and click play. Ooh, there we go. You can go ahead and use the buttons down below to pause it and then continue on in the tour, and then when you're done at the end you can go ahead and go back. Let's go ahead and close out of the tour editor and do just a few more things. Let's close out of the field list, and we can right click on the legend. I'm good with removing it for now. And then come up here for the scene group, click on themes if you want to choose a different theme, maybe color black. Oh, that really pops. And you've got your scene options. When you play it out, you can have the scene name, the scene duration. Instead of 10 seconds, shorten it, lengthen it. The effects, the transition for the effects, 3 seconds. The speed of the scene if you want to slow it way down or make it super fast. And then go ahead and close out. And then come over here, let's go ahead and click play. Wow. And it just repeats over and over again, because down below we can turn the repeat off, so it just plays it once. Well, that was annoying. Let's go ahead and go back because it was so fast. In any case, you can customize that and tweak that. Let's close out of that. And down below the timeline control bar, you also have setting options for that. Click on that. Same thing that you get up here for your scene options. If you want to change it up here, brings up the same window. And then when you're done, you can just go ahead and close out. It saves it, because when you want to view it again, just come back up here, Insert, to the Tours, click on 3D, And there's tour 1. If you want to add a new tour, then go ahead and click on New Tour. And this is tour 2. Go ahead and go through all the steps that you want to tweak it, customize it, and then when you're done, you can go ahead and close out. So when you come back and you click on 3D maps again, now you've got 2 tours. And when you want to get rid of them, just click on that little X to delete it. And be sure to save your workbooks so it keeps that 3D map available for the next time when you open up the workbook. The data table feature begins with you creating a table of varying values that you can use in conjunction with the formula that will then show the results of each changing value. So for example, I want to calculate the monthly payment on a loan amount of $15,000, interest rate 3%, number of payments 60 or 60 months to pay it off. And to do that, you can see up here when I select the cell in the formula bar, it's the PMT or payment function, which you can watch my training video on that, and assuming that you've seen it, let's go ahead and instead of coming up here and saying, okay, if I change it to 4%, what will the monthly payment be? Type in 4, hit enter, okay, $663, but what was 3%? Instead of going back and forth, we can go ahead and use the data table feature and fill in the results, what the final monthly payment will be, for each of the variables down below or each changing value, the interest rate. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and select the cell in the second column up at the top so we can reference the formula that's going to be using these changing variables. Now the reason why we're going to go ahead and reference the formula by hitting an equals and selecting it and hitting enter is because here you can see up in the formula bar we get the value of it. We don't actually have the formula in the cell. And the reason being is because the data table feature doesn't like some of the formulas. You can go ahead and play with it, and when you come across one that it chokes on it, well, then you know. But it always accepts the value of a formula. So that's why we're going to go ahead and just reference the formula. And then go ahead and select the range, including the formula that we're referencing. So the variables and also the results that will be displayed over in the second column. And again, the formula that's going to be using these changing variables. And come up here, click on the Data tab. Go to the Forecast group, click on the What If Analysis, and select Data Table. And you got 2 input cells, one for row, one for column. First of all, what's the input? Well, the input we're looking at is the interest rate, and so it's going to be this one right here, cell B2. And so is it going to be a row or a column? It's going to be the column because the variables are in a column format. If they were in a row format, then we would enter in cell B2 into the row field. Let's go ahead and go down to the column and type in B2. And then click Okie dokie. Hey, there we go. Let's go ahead and check it out and see if it worked out. So at 4%, we get 663. At 4% here, there it is, 663. Cool. How about if we come up here and we change it to 3%? The results is 541. 3%, 541. So you can just go ahead and look at this and compare and contrast and all in one view and not have to come up here and change it to 3 to 4 to 4 1/4 and so on. So what we covered here was the one variable. What if you have 2 variables and you want to use the data table feature? Well, I'm glad you asked. Come with me, neighbor. Let's come down here and click on sheet number 2 for a 2 variable. And you can see it right here. I'm using the same functions so I don't lose you, meaning that we're working on the payment, the monthly payment, again for the same loan amount, interest rate, number of payments. And now I have 2 variables in my table. I have the interest rate and the principal amount. So if I want to come up here and play around with it and say, okay, what's it going to be the monthly payment at $10,000 and then the interest rate at 5% and type all that in? Well, if I create the table with my column, and you can flip this around, it doesn't matter, there's no magic to it. You can have the principal amount for the row and the interest for the column, or as I have it here. And the good news is again, we can see the results of all those values in the cross tab here by referencing 3 1/4 at 25%. The bad news is with the data table feature is that if you got a lot of variables, ooh-wee, you could take up a lot of spreadsheet. So I kept it simple. In any case, we want to go ahead and select the cell that's in the corner of the table to reference the formula. Hitting equals on the keyboard, select the cell, hit enter. There's the reference. Then go ahead and select that and the rest of the table. Then data to forecast what if, to data table. And we've got our input cells, row and column. We've got 2. So we've got the row, which is the interest rate. So for the row, there's the interest. And then for the column, it's going to be the principal value. So we need to select cell B1, click Okie dokie, and there we go. See if it checks out. 15,000, which is right here. Cross-reference that over to 3%, 541541. So if I come up here and I say, let's do 4% at 50,000. So we go down to 50,000 at 4%. Oh, don't lose it. Oh, right there. 2210, 2210. Cool. The Scenario Manager allows you to create different groups of values or scenarios and switch between them. So instead of typing over, if I want to increase my marketing, which hopefully increases my revenue, and then say, okay, that's one scenario, and then typing over those numbers because I have a different scenario, go ahead and use the Scenario Manager to create those groups of values, and it will store all of them, or as many as you want to create, and be able to switch between them in a single click. So for example, come up here, click on the Data tab, go to the Forecast group, click on the What If Analysis, and it's right there. Click on it, and go ahead and add your first scenario by clicking on Add. And the first scenario that I always recommend that you add is the original. So you've got your original base that you're going off of here, which are these cells here. And it says by changing what cells. Let me go ahead and delete that. And click and drag and select the expenses. Move that over. Hold down the Control key so I can also select the revenues from Team North and South. And then add a comment down below if you'd like. This is the original scenario. And then go ahead and click OK. Then it says go ahead and enter in values for each of the changing cells or cells that you want to change, but since this is the original, we'll leave it as is and click OK. So there's the original snapshot of what we have here. Now let's go ahead and add our first changing scenario. Click Add and say that we want to increase our marketing by $10,000. That's the scenario. By changing these cells, go ahead and click OK. And the marketing is in cell B8, so I come over here to B8 and say that I want to increase it by 10,000. Delete it, type in 60,000. And when I increase the marketing, I'm hopefully increasing the revenue. So this is going to be a guesstimation. And so we can say maybe for our revenue, we get 410,000, and for Team South, maybe just a $5,000 increase, so 305,000. And then click OK. Now we have our second scenario. Let's do another, click Add, and let's do a 20,000 marketing increase. Go ahead and click OK, and then change it. So 20,000 would bring it up to, well, there's the original value of 50,000. So if we do 70,000, then let's say we do something like 425,000 for North and 315,000 for the South. Now I could click OK again, but if I want to go right to another scenario and save this one at the same time, click on Add, saves that, and it opens up a new window here for the next scenario. And we'll do a 30,000 marketing increase, and then click OK. Let's do 80,000, and then let's do some big numbers here. Ooh, let's do something crazy. 500,000 and 400,000. Click OK, and there we go. Now, with those scenarios available, all you have to do is go ahead and select one, and then come down at the bottom and click Show. When I click Show, our expenses will go up because we increased the marketing, which is part of the data range here. That gives us the total expense, and also increase the total revenue. Go ahead and click on Show, and look at that. We went up to 440,000 in total expenses, but our revenue went up to $900,000. Sweet. Then we can go back to the original, click on Show. Cool. And then if you accidentally close out, no worries. Just come back up, What If Analysis to Scenario Manager. It's still there for you to add, delete if you like. Like maybe we don't want the 30,000. Go ahead and delete that. It's gone. And then if you want to make changes to any one of them, we can go ahead and say edit the 10,000. Click on Edit. Opens it up if you want to change the name. Otherwise, go ahead and click OK to step into it. And then change your numbers. And by the way, you can also type in formulas here. So if I go ahead and delete 20,000 and type in equals 20 times 1,000, that's going to be 20,000. When I click OK, it says it can't have formulas, so it's going to convert it into values, which is fine. So for my Christmas marketing, it should be still 20,000. Click Okie dokie, click Show, and there you go. It hasn't changed because remember, it converted the formula, which is going to calculate 20,000 anyways, into the value, so there's the value. And if this window is bothering you and it's getting in the way of your spreadsheet, you can go ahead and close out and add the scenario to your quick access toolbar to be able to display or toggle between them by coming up here, right-clicking anywhere on it, going down to Customize Quick Access Toolbar, change it from Popular to All Commands, and then scroll down to the S's to find Scenario, not the manager, but just where it says Scenario. Double-click on it, add it over to the right, click OK. Click on the green orb, and there's your scenarios. Go to Original, takes us back. Let's go to the 20,000, goes from 410 to 430,000 in total expenses. Sweet. Now we don't have that annoying window in the way. The forecast sheet feature will take historical date and/or time-based data to create a graphical projection of future trends. So in my database, I've got the latter end of 2015 and the earlier part of 2016. So go ahead and select a cell anywhere within your database, then come up here and click on the Data tab, go to the Forecast group, and click on Forecast Sheet. And there it is, a preview of it before you actually create the sheet. And you can see that the latter part of 2015 to the earlier part of 2016, not looking good. And then the forecast trend goes to 2017 and it continues the slide. How about 2018, 29? Oh, that's getting horrifying. Let's not do any more of that. Let's go ahead and click and drag this up. Take a look at the options. You can set the forecast start, seasonality. If you want to change the time range, mine is in column A, the years 2015 and 2016, whatever's in there. If you want to set it to another column, go ahead and clear it out. Click on the collapsible dialog box button and select another column of dates. Let's go ahead and hit the Enter key to pop it back open. Also with the value range. Now the value range is column E, which is the income. I can change that and just focus on the number of items sold, but I'll keep it as income. And then right now it's looking for averages. If I go ahead and change that to the sum, then it converts it from the average of sales to the actual total sales, which for 2015 is just over 20,000, and then in 2016 it went down to about 12,000. And continuing on this forecast, it's not getting any better. In fact, if you don't like the line chart, you can go ahead and go to the column chart. And there we go. I'll see that. Oh, that's not good. So we get so far down below to where the income goes into the negative if we continue, meaning that we owe people money to just take our products. No, I'm kidding. In any case, you get the idea. And when you're done, go ahead and click Create. And it creates a forecast sheet. And it says this table contains a copy of your data with additional forecasted values at the end. You can manually edit the forecasting formulas in this sheet or return to your original data to create a different forecast worksheet. Got it? Okay, I got it. So we got our original data back on the sales sheet, and it created this forecast sheet here with a chart based upon a copy of the data and its forecast. 2017, 2018, 2019. And let's see what happens if we decide to cook the books. Instead of 3,200, let's go with 5,000. Hit enter. Oh, we're getting better. We can cook the books. But if somebody selects a cell, they can see that we cooked it because I typed in a value as opposed to the value that was set before that with the forecast estimate from the ranges here. The goal seek feature is used to get the answer you want out of a function by changing a part of the function. In other words, what one part of the function or argument are you going to allow to be flexible in order to get the answer that you want? So for example, I'm using the payment function to calculate the monthly payment, as you can see up here in the formula bar. That's based upon the principal amount, the interest rate, and number of payments. If the value that I want isn't $339 a month, but like let's say $500 a month, then what one argument out of the syntax, one of these three right here, do I want to change to get the value that I want? Because if I allow it to change the principal amount to get $500 a month, then it would increase that. If it was the interest rate to go up to $500 a month, it'd increase the percentage. And if it was the number of months, it could go ahead and shrink the number of payments down to get the $500 monthly payment, depending upon how you want to go with this. If I want to decrease the number of payments, then to use the goal seek feature, select the cell that contains the function. And if you don't know anything about the PMT or payment function, then you can watch my training video on it. Assuming that you've seen that, let's come up here and click on the Data tab. Go to the Forecast group, click on the What If analysis, go down to Goal Seek, And the set cell that contains our function or formula is cell F4. So if you don't have it selected by default, then go ahead and select it. And then what value do you want out of it? Well, I don't want $339, I want $500 a month. Now, before I can just go ahead and type in a value, you need to know that GoalSeek does not like mixed positive and negative numbers, meaning if the function is returning a negative number, then you have to set the value that you want to be negative as well. So we'll type in negative 500, and then by changing what cell or what part of the argument in the syntax do you want it to be flexible to get the number that you want. We want the number of payments to decrease to increase our monthly payment. So just go ahead and select it, click Okie dokie, and there you go. So the number of payments goes to 32 months and a little change. So if you like it, go ahead and click Okie dokie or click Cancel. We're back to where we started, so we can go ahead and do it again. What if GoalSeek to value negative 500 by changing that cell, click Okie dokie. If you like it, click OK and it stays. Cool. Solver, like the GoalSeek feature, allows you to set the value that you want to have the function return, but Solver allows more flexibility by allowing you to choose more than one argument in the function that Solver can change in order to get the desired result. Additionally, Solver allows you to put constraints on those flexible arguments. So, as you recall in the previous training video on GoalSeek, we use the payment function, and we're using it here as well. As you can see when I select the cell, up here in the formula bar, it's got PMT for payment. So if you haven't watched the payment or the GoalSeek training videos, I recommend that you watch that, assuming that you've seen it. Let's go ahead and continue. So the monthly payment is based upon the principal amount, the interest rate, and the number of payments. With GoalSeek, when I wanted the monthly payment to be at $500, I allowed it to change the number of payments, or I could say the interest rate or the principal amount, just one. With Solver, I could do one, but I can also do 2, 3, well, as many arguments are available within the function, I can go ahead and allow Solver to change in order to get my $500 a month payment. So to bring Solver up, because it's not added in by default, if it was, you'd see it up here on the Data tab over to the far right. We have to go backstage, click on File, down to Options, select Add-ins, and then go down and make sure that Excel Add-ins is selected and click Go. Check Solver, click OK, and there we go. Go ahead and click on Solver, and you can see here, starting up at the top, the set objective is going to be the one that contains the function, cell F4, so that worked out well. Hits in there. And then the desired result that I want to get is going to be the value of 500. Now, keep in mind, like GoalSeek, if you got a negative value up here, you want to make sure you type in a negative value here. You don't want to mix it where you have negative, positive, positive, negative, because if you do, you're going to get funny results. So let's go ahead and type in negative 500. And then to get the desired value, what are we going to allow Solver to change, or what cells to get it? So go ahead and click in the field here, and then we can say to keep it simple if we want to just do one, which you can, by changing the number of payments. Then go ahead and click Solve, click and drag the title bar down, and there you go. We got it. If you want to keep it, then just click OK. If you don't, then click Cancel. Let's go ahead and go back and try something more. Solver. It remembers my values and also what cells we could change. Let's go ahead and kick it up a notch. Let's move this down and say we want to change cells. The principal amount, hold down the Control key, and the number of payments. We'll skip the interest rate. And before I go ahead and click Solve, how about if we put constraints on these, like saying, okay, for the principal amount, and let's go ahead and click Solve. And then take a look, and okay, so the principal amount instead of 15,000 has increased, and the number of payments has decreased. Well, that's a good option, but what if you really want to constrict it or put constraints on it with the principal amount saying it's got to be less than 17,000 but greater than 16,000, and also the number of payments has to be less than 40. Well, let's go ahead and click Cancel so we can go back to the original. Come back up here, click on Solver, and add our constraints by clicking on Add. And so go ahead and select the cell that you want to put your first constraint on, and we'll say it's got to be less than or equal to 17,000. Click Add, and then allows us to add another to the same cell, and we're going to flip it and say that the cell has to be greater than 16,000. And then go ahead and click Add. And then if you're done, you can go ahead and click cancel. And then if you're like, oh, wait a second, I want to add another, go ahead and click add. And we can add it to the number of payments here and say it's got to be less than or equal to, let's do 35. And then we can go ahead and click okie dokie. It adds it and opens up the window again for us to solve it. And if you want to make any changes, then go ahead and select it, click change. And you can say 15,500 and click okie dokie. And of course you can select any of them, delete them. I'm going to go with what I got, click solve and see what I created. Click and drag down, take a peek, and oh, there we go. Kept it under 35 payments, and it's less than 17,000 but over 15,500. Nice. We'll go ahead and say keep it by clicking OK. And you can keep playing with it, but if at any one point you want to go ahead and remove the solver feature, then just go backstage, file, options, same way that you went to add it, add-ins, to Excel add-ins, go and just uncheck it and click okie dokie, and it's gone. If you want to be able to take a random sample of a range of data, you can use the sampling feature, but know that it only works on cells that contain numbers and not text. For example, I want to send 2 employees and their families to Hawaii, and to be fair, I want to do a random sample. And by default, the random sample is not installed in Excel, it's an add-in. So to add it in, come up here and click on the File tab, go down to Options, select Add-ins, and then make sure it says Excel Add-ins, then go ahead and click Go, and check the Analysis Tool Pack. OK. Then come up here, click on the Data tab, and there it is in the Analysis group, Data Analysis. Click on it, and then scroll to and find Sampling, and then click okie dokie. Now what's the input range that we want to take a sampling from? Well, you can go ahead and click on the collapsible dialog box button and then select the range, the employee ID, hit enter to pop it back open, and you can include the labels, and if I check that, it'll include the ID label here, and I don't want to do that. Then the sampling method, we want to keep it random, and then how many samples do we want? We want a total of 2. Now you need to know that the sampling range, for my purposes here, is going to be faulty or could be faulty, because when it goes through the first sample, because it's going to take 2, it goes down and it finds one. It says, okay, 441 will be the first random sample. And then when it goes through a second time, it doesn't remember what it chose the first time, and so it could select it again, 441, in which case I'd have to go ahead and run it again. In any case, let's go ahead and hope for the best with the first sampling. And then down below, the output range, select that if you want to go ahead and choose a range somewhere within the same worksheet, or if you want it on a new worksheet, go ahead and give it a name. Vacation winners, or you could do a new workbook. We'll keep it new worksheet and click okie dokie. Hey, there we go, it's right there, and down below, the name of the worksheet, Vacation Winners. Now we looked out, it didn't pick the same employee ID twice, so we got a random samples, but the problem I'd run into is that, who's the employee? I'd have to go back to sheet 1 and say, okay, 101 is, oh, Marge, great. What you can do is you can use the vertical lookup function to be able to pull that information over by clicking in the adjacent cell. And by the way, if you don't know anything about the VLOOKUP function, you can watch my training video on it, and assuming that you've seen it, let's go ahead and race through it really fast. Equals V, there it is, VL, VLOOKUP. Hit the tab key to pop open the function. What value do you want to look up? Well, it's going to be the employee ID here, comma, to go to the next argument in the syntax, and then it wants to look in, well, where's the data range or table? Let's go back to sheet 1, and it's going to include the ID, so it can look up and compare and bring back, what, the first name or the last name. Well, let's just do the last name, and then go ahead and do comma, and you can see here, we go to the next argument, and then of the data range, which column do you want to bring back the results from? Well, for the 2 columns that we selected, that's column 1, that's column 2, so we want to bring back the results, the last name from column 2. So let's go ahead and type in 2, and then hit enter, and there we go. Simpson, oh that's nice. Now if I came up here and I hovered over the bottom right hand corner to get the autofill and clicked and dragged down, it's a copy and paste, and it may work, but if it doesn't work, I want you to notice the difference between the two, as we talked about in a few training videos. That if you look at the vertical lookup function here, it's looking in the range of A4 through B10, and then down below it's looking A5 through B11. It just so happens that the employee is within the range, but it's shifting down because when we copy and paste down one row by using the autofill handle, it's going to update because it's relative and also move the search range or the range of data down one row. So as I go back here, instead of going in row 4, it now updated to row 5 down to row 11. So to keep it within the same range, 4 to 10, we got to go back, and we need to go back to the original formula here, or the first one in our column for Simpson, and we need to tell it to stay in the rows 4 and 10, and not to update when we copy and paste and go down to go to 5 and 11, and then if we had another to 6 and 12 and so on. So we need to add our absolute values for 4 and click and add it for 10, which are the dollar signs. And if you don't know anything about those, then you can watch my training videos on absolute values and mixed values, and then go ahead and hit enter, and then we can go ahead and select it. Bottom right hand corner, autofill, click and drag down. Then we can select it to update it to make sure it's still, hey, row 4 through 10 and not 5 through 10. Sweet. And then of course to go ahead and remove the data analysis here, just go back the way we came to add it and uncheck the box, as opposed to checking it to bring it here in the first place. Now if the sampling feature in the previous training video doesn't work for you because you keep coming across duplicates and you're wasting a lot of time, then the other option I can offer or suggest is the rand function in conjunction with the advanced filter feature. Now, we already covered the advanced filter feature in an earlier training video, so you want to watch that, assuming that you've seen it. Let's go back to our worksheet, our database here on sheet 1. And down below in a cell here, let's enter in our rand function equals RAND. And you can see with it highlighted in the pop-up, it says returns a random number greater than or equal to 0, but less than 1. So we're dealing in decimals. Let's go ahead and with it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop open the function. And you can see down below, we'll close it with the other parenthesis, hit enter, and there it is. The random sample between 0 and 1. But what I want to do is I want a random sample of these 7 employees here, and I just want 1. So what I can do is I can come up here in the formula bar and do say less than 0.05, which is 5%. So it's 5% of 7 employees. It's about 1, so it should give me 1. If I did 25% of 7, it would be about 2, and 50% would be about 3 or 4. So you'll have to play with that if you'd like. Go ahead and hit enter. And that's our mini criteria database that we're setting up for the advanced filter feature, because the advanced filter feature requires some criteria. Now I'm not going to add a label up above, but keep in mind that when we use the advanced filter feature, that we select the empty label cell above and not just the criteria, because if we select the criteria, it will think it's the label and we'll get erroneous results. So let's go ahead and go to another cell here and come up here, click on the Data tab, go to the Sort and Filter group, and do the Advanced Filter feature. Click on it. And first off, it wants to know what range that we want to filter for. Looks good. Employee ID, last name, first name. You can add more or less. You can just go ahead and, of course, delete that and then click and drag to select your range. Criteria, let's go ahead and delete that. Click on the collapsible dialog box button, and remember we got to choose the label above even though it's empty, and then drag down and choose the actual criteria, the results therein, and then hit enter on the keyboard to pop it open. Then I want to copy the results to another location. Let me go ahead and clear the contents there and say it's going to be right here. Now of course it's going to bring in more than just the ID, so as it brings in more, it'll go ahead and expand, but it'll start in that cell, and then go ahead and click Okie dokie. Hey, there we go, our first random sample, which happens to be the first person here, Marge. That's okay. We'll go ahead and do it again, and let's do, how about 3 or 4 of them? So we'll do 50%. Now what I recommend that you do, instead of just deleting this and going to random sample again, I run into errors, especially when you want to do something that's different because you want it random again. So we'll go ahead and just clear it all out. And then we'll type in equals, RAND, tab, close parentheses. It's going to be less than 0.50, and then hit enter. And then let's go ahead and come over here, come back up here on the Data tab, the Sort and Filter group, click Advanced. It's got everything that we need here, but we want to copy to another location. And of course, we've got our criteria range, which is the same range. Good. Copy. Well, let's go ahead and clear it. Select the cell, click Okie dokie, and okay. So we got 101, 111, then it skipped 214, went down to 441, then it skipped 448, got 500. Sweet. Works for me. And if all this seems tedious, don't forget you got your macros, so you want to watch my training video on the advanced filter feature, which I go over in tandem with macros, and also the macro training videos. So you can go ahead and record all these steps and then just execute them in a single click by doing your random and also doing the advanced filter feature and also a macro to go ahead and just select the whole range and clear it out in a single click, or your shortcut keys, whatever works for you. The Descriptive Statistics feature does a sampling of common statistics for a range of data, like the maximum, minimum, sum, count, and a lot more. And so to be able to bring it up, it's an add-in, so it's not added in by default. And like all add-ins, to bring them into Excel, we need to go Backstage, File, down to Options, select Add-ins, and then down below make sure it says Excel Add-ins, click on Go. And then check Analysis Toolpack. It's already checked for me, so let's go ahead and click Cancel, and it's going to be on the Data tab at the very end in the Analysis group. Click on Data Analysis, and look for and select Descriptive Statistics. Double click on it, opens up the window, and it says, okay, what's your input range? Well, if I want to choose this range, then we can leave it as is. Otherwise, I'd clear it and click on the Collapsible Dialog Box button, and if I want it for Q2, I can select it, hit the Enter key to pop it back open. And do I want it grouped by columns or rows? Well, I only selected one column, so I'll leave that alone. And then labels in the first row. I didn't include the label, but if I did, I want to make sure that I check the box, because if not, then it'll assume that the label is part of the statistics, and so that's not going to work. And then down below, the output options in a new worksheet. Give the worksheet a name or a new workbook. But let's go ahead and actually K4 sounds good, but we can delete it. Click and drag over here and choose it again. And then check Summary Statistics. Click Okie dokie. There we go. Well, it's being cut off, so let me go ahead and hover up in between the two column headers till I can see arrows pointing in opposite directions. Double click really fast to do a best fit, and then to the right of L, double click really fast, best fit, and there we go. Maximum, minimum, sum, count, and kurtosis. Bless you. And so much more. And then, of course, to go ahead and remove this, just go back the way we came. When you wanted to add the analysis, File, Options, Add-ins, click Go, uncheck the box, click Okie dokie, and it will be removed from the Data tab. The Power View feature is used to create attractive visualizations and report summaries of your worksheets, with special emphasis on variables that are useful to you in a separate worksheet. And the elements that can be added to a Power View worksheet include charts, maps, KPIs, or key performance indicators, and hierarchies. Now, the Power View will only include data from tables, and so if you haven't converted your data range into a table, you want to do so. And if you don't know how, then you can watch my Create Tables training videos. Assuming that you convert it, and there's my table there, then go ahead and select any cell within it, and then click on the Power View report. Now, Microsoft had it removed from Excel in 2016, and it typically does this when the popularity of a feature drops, but we can add it to the Quick Access toolbar, so let's do that. Come up here and right-click anywhere on it. Go down to Customize Quick Access toolbar, change it from Popular to All Commands, and then scroll down to the eyes to insert a Power View report. And there it is. Insert a Power View report. Double-click to add it over to the right, click Okie dokie. And there it is. Make sure you have a cell selected within your table, then go ahead and click on it. And know that the Power View report requires Microsoft Silverlight application to be installed, and so if it asks you to enable it, go ahead. If it asks you to upgrade it, then go ahead and click yes. And then you'll see right there our Power View sheet. And then we've got our original worksheet here that contains our table that it's based upon. Let's go back to the Power View worksheet. And you can see over here on the left is the report canvas, and the right is the field list in the task pane. And it contains all the tables that are in the workbook, and we only have one. And so if you want to see all the tables, click on All, and the active one is the one that you have selected, and so this is the one that we're working on, and it's the only one. And the fields here are either a category or value. If it's a value, it'll have a sigma or a calculator icon next to it. So we're dealing with numbers here. We've got numbers in stock, on order, and the price. And over here, we've got the fields that have been checked over on the right, and they're all checked by default. If I don't want to see the in stock or on order, then just go ahead and uncheck them in stock, on order. And if it's too tiny for you, you can go ahead and hover over the bottom right-hand corner resizing handle and click and drag it out. And then to increase the size of the font, come up here, click on the Design tab, go to the text group, and there's the increase. Increase it enough to, oh, we went too far. Well, we'll have to use the scrolly dealy unless we want to go ahead and expand it some more, which we can. And then if it's being cut off, you can go ahead and hover over up at the top, the label for the column, the right-hand side, until you can get arrows pointing in opposite directions, then click and drag it. Okay, now we can see the rest of the number here. And also you can sort it, ascending or descending, when you click on one of the labels. So it's by category. Let's do it by essential oils, ascending, C's down to the Z's. And let's go ahead and click and drag this some more so we can separate them. There we go. And then we can go ahead and hover over the middle right resizing handle and click and drag that out. Cool. And if you want to go ahead and filter these, then you can see there's the filter part of the window here. If you want to filter it by category, go ahead and click and drag the field to it, as it says down below right here. Well, you just missed it. You can pause the video, but it says go ahead and click and drag a field that you want to filter by. And the text is really tiny. You can go ahead and close out of the field list here. And if you're like, oh, I want to bring it back, then come up here and click on the Power View tab and click on Field List to bring it back. And you can hover over it. It gives you a pop-up there, so now you can see it more clearly. And if you want to do antibacterial, anti-cancer, whatever you want to check to filter by, there you go. And then to go ahead and clear the filter, you can go ahead and uncheck all, or if you got a few checked here, you can come up here and click on that little, it looks like an eraser. You probably can't see it, it's so tiny. Clear filter, you can see in the pop-up, click on it, restores it back, clears all the boxes here. Now if you want to view this visually, like maybe a chart, then let's come up here, click on the Design tab, go to the Switch Visualization group, and you can do bar, column, or how about pie chart. Click on that, give it a few seconds to figure it out, and hey, there we go. Go ahead and use the resizing handles to be able to see more or less of it, as it were. And then if you want to give your chart a title, you can come up here where it says click here to add a title. Cost chart, click off of it, and then down below hover over any one of the slices. That one's frankincense, the essential oil at $93, and there it is. It represents it, frankincense. Let's go ahead and do something a bit more, like how about adding a second filter? This time let's do a value like price, click and drag it over to the filter area here. And then you got these two numbers, the low end of the prices, which is $18.67, then the high end, which is 93, and the high end is going to be frankincense. I can't remember what the low end is. We can choose the, well, what appears to be the smallest slice here. There we go, clove. And you can hover over and click and drag the slider, and when you go from left to right, up here, it says it's going to be greater than or equal to $45.47. So it filters for anything greater than that. And you can see that frankincense at 93, and then 47 for lang lang, and then we got 82.33 for sandalwood. Now you can do it that way, or click and drag it back down, or go the other way from right to left by clicking and dragging to going to is less than or equal to wherever you stop it at, in this case $58.81. And then to go ahead and clear that, you can go ahead and click on that clear filter little button there. That's hard to see, but it's the middle of the three buttons. This one just clears it out where you can go ahead and click on it to delete the filter, but if you want to bring it back, click and drag price back again, and there we go. And then you can toggle through the filter modes, so if you don't want to use the slidey bar, then go ahead and click on that first button there where it says list filter mode, click on it, converts it into check boxes where you can go ahead and actually check the values that are available there to be able to see the ones that you'd like. Cool. And then if you toggle again, let's see what it brings up next. Advanced filter mode, click on it. And then you get the option to choose is greater than or equal to, or you can click on the drop down arrow and choose something else like is less than or equal to and actually type in a number like 50, hit enter. And there we go. There's everything less than 50. And then when you're done, you can go ahead and click clear to bring it all back, and you can just keep toggling through. There's only three that it toggles through. The slidey bar, the check boxes, and then actually entering in a value. Finally, the only chart that allows you to animate if you want animation is the scatter plot. And so let's go ahead and convert the pie into a scatter plot so I can show you the animation, which is pretty fun. Let's come up here, click on the Design tab, go to the Switch Visualization group, and let's click on Other Chart to Scatter. And there we go. All the plots are down at the bottom. They're cut off, and they're tiny plots, and it's going along the x-axis. And if you try, you can hover over one, and that's clove, category antiparasitic, price is $18.67. So you can see as we increase, we go all the way up to frankincense at $93. Now, if I want to be able to see these plots in animation mode where it goes from the smallest amount to the largest, one at a time, then let's go ahead over in the task pane, click and drag to scroll down to where it says Play Access. And I want to be able to see this in play, the price, click and drag that to the Play Access. And then give it a second, and there we go. Gives you the play button with the values it'll be playing along. The lowest value all the way up to frankincense, which is $93. When I click play, it goes through and you can see it moving along as it increases along the x-axis until it gets to the end. And that's not really helpful for me or doing a presentation because nobody can see it. So what I can do to clean it up, at least for my example here, is I can actually scroll up and include the price value in the Y value, the Y-axis field as well. So when I click and drag that, now because they're both the same, the X and the Y, is going to plot them diagonally. And I want to be able to see these in a larger size than the tiny plots here. So if I click and drag the price to the size field, there you go. Okay, now I can see what we're doing here. So when I give the presentation or I want to analyze this, just go ahead and click on play, and you can see the different sizes based upon the values right there smack in the middle and not being cut off down at the bottom on the x-axis. The Consolidating Data feature is a lot like the AutoSum function in that you can summarize a range of data. But with Consolidating Data, it will summarize data from several ranges into a single range, not just a single cell. You see, the sum function, you can go ahead and insert it here, and because I want to be able to pull in the total quantity for all the sales for each employee for each item here, like for Lizzie, there she is, double bubble, cell C5, Gertie, C5 for double bubble, and Dot Warner. Also for consolidating, to keep it simple, I put it in cell C5. But in any case, once I go ahead and add that up by using the sum function, that's a single cell. But with Consolidating Data, I can go ahead and select a range and be able to pull all the employees' sales for each of these items over at once. Of course, you want to keep them respectively because when you do it, each one of them has to have it in order as you have it here to consolidate the data. So it goes double bubble. It's got to be for the first cell, Nerds Rope, Milky Way, and you can see for Lizzie, double bubble, Nerds Rope, Milky Way, and for all the others are the same. So I've got my workbook that I want to go ahead and pull all those cells for each one of these items into for the 3 employees. And in order for this to work, by using the Consolidating Data feature, those other workbooks have to be open. And you can select the range or just select the cell. It doesn't matter because once it dumps it into the first cell, it'll see that it'll have additional cells to dump it into until it fills up the entire range. So we'll automate it for you, whatever you feel more comfortable with. We can just go ahead and select the entire range if you'd like. And then come up here and click on the Data tab, go to the Data Tools group, and it's right there, Consolidate. And you can see the icon, you got a bunch of cells going into one. Well, that makes sense because we've got 3 employees who made sales on double bubble going into this one that we're consolidating in the consolidated workbook. And then for Nerds Rope, will be consolidated into that cell and so on. So let's go ahead and select the range, come up here and click on Consolidate. And then you can choose if you want to add them up or choose a different function, count, average. We'll keep it on sum. And then we need to go ahead and reference those ranges that we want to pull over into my consolidated workbook for those 3 employees to be able to get the totals in cells for the double bubble for all 3, Nerds Rope, and so on. And you can do it one of a couple of ways. One way, and be sure that all the workbooks are open by the way, is to go ahead and click on the collapsible dialog box button, come up here and click on the View tab, go to the Window group, click on Switch Windows, and it has a list of all the Excel workbooks that are open. the least of which we'll start with Lizzie, and there's her workbook. So we can just come over here and click and drag to select the range, and then click on it to expand it open. Is that correct? Looks good. Click Add. Then once we add it, we can click on the Collapsible dialog box button again, View tab, Windows, to switch. Now we want to go to, let's do Gertie, and then click and drag to select the same range, quantities for her sales, expand, and you can see it's Gertie. We got Lizzie, but we need to add Gertie, so click Add, and you can do it that way, or click on the Collapsible dialog box button. And the last one is Dot. You can just come down here and click on the corresponding button for the window that's opened. And it's not allowing me to go over to Dot. We better clear this out first here, and then go ahead and click on Dot. And there we go. Then we can go ahead and select the range for Dot and click on it to expand it, and then say Add. Now that we have all three, down below we can use labels. Well, since I already have the label QTY in my consolidated workbook, I don't need to check the box here to go ahead and add the label above the selected range to the consolidated workbook, or if I had a label over and I was doing by rows. And then you can create links to the source data so any changes they make in their workbooks will affect your consolidated workbook. Update it. Let's go ahead and check it, and then click Okie dokie. And okay, left this in Dot. We got to go back to our consolidating workbook, and hey, there we go. Now before I do anything else, you can see the results, and it's coming from different workbooks. You can also apply the same concept for consolidating data to within the workbook. Like if you had a bunch of worksheets for Lizzie, Gertie, and Dot, that you want to consolidate the data from those worksheets into this one, that works. Or you can have it within the same worksheet and just follow the same steps or the same concept there. You're just not going outside by using the switch window feature to be able to select the data in the other workbooks. But instead, you can click on the Collapsible dialog box button, choose the different worksheet, or within the worksheet, select the range, then click Add. That works. So now looking at the totals here, let's see if it checks out. You've got these plus signs that you can expand. That shows you it's being pulled in from 3 different workbooks. So we had 0 sales for, this is for Double Bubble. 0 sales, and who did 0? Just look up here in the formula bar. It's the workbook Dot Warner. Oh, she's in trouble. Who made the 2? Hey, Gertie, I can count on her. And then finally for Lizzie, cool. Go ahead and click on plus to expand the next one. The total for Nerds Ropes is 443. You can click and drag to select the range of the 3 cells, and you can check it down below in the status bar, 443. Cool. You've got your levels 1, which is just the totals, and then 2, broken down by cells by the individual employees. And they're linked, so any changes that I make, like let's do it for Double Bubble for Dot. Let's go to Dot's workbook and say she made a whole whopping 20. Hit enter. It should update back in the consolidating workbook, and hey, there we go. Sweet. One last thought is that it's being linked to the workbook that's on the desktop. In other words, if Dot takes her workbook and puts it into a folder on the desktop or on the network, and you open up the workbook and it says, we can't find the workbook, you want to watch my Link Workbooks training video, because up here on the Data tab in the Connections group, we got to reconnect to that workbook that's gone missing. That is, if it hasn't been deleted or it's in a place that you don't have access to. And just as a quick reference, click on Edit Links, and you can see it's being linked to Dot, Gertie, and Lizzie. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.